Good morning, everybody. I'm Larry Weishuhn. If you enjoy real-world hunting and fishing talk, you're really going to enjoy listening to my good friend, Luke Clayton, and his guest for the next hour.
This is David Fox, and welcome to Outdoors with Luke Clayton and Friends. Luke has been a recognized outdoors writer for the past 3 decades and writes for a host of outdoor publications. Luke pens a weekly newspaper outdoors column that appears in over 40 Texas newspapers. Luke is on the pro staff of Pyramyd Air, your one-stop shop for everything air gun related. Smokin Tex electric smokers and AGM Global Vision, maker of an awesome line of thermal hunting scopes and spotters. Feel free to contact Luke through his website, catfishradio.org. Now let's join Luke and his guests for this week's show.
Well, friends, welcome to Campfire Talk with myself and Mr. Larry Weishuhn. We've been doing this going on 17 years every week. And Larry's here with us sipping some coffee this morning. Good morning, Larry. How in the world are you doing, buddy?
Well, top of the morning to you. You know, you described that, and I get thinking about, gosh, you know, we should have kept up with the cords of wood that we burned over the years. It would be a pretty good pile of wood. But, you know, before we really get started, I need to tell everybody that I want to invite them to the DSC convention there in Atlanta in January. And, of course, our sponsor for a long time has been DSC, which is Conservation Education, Hunter Advocacy, and Hornady, accurate, digital, dependable, stealth vision, whose scopes and optics we're just, oh, man, I'm in love with, I'll tell you. And VINEYARDMAX, you know, gosh, they're Texas company is based as well too with their VINEYARDMAX, of course, the Southern knives that I designed, and then Mossberg. Well, this as well too. Mossberg is made here in Texas, down in Eagle Pass, Texas, is where they put their guns together, and gosh, there's a whole bunch of other great sponsors out there like Taurus and the Oklahoma folks up there, our Oklahoma connection on the Choctaw. But you know, Luke Clayton. We last time, as I remember correctly, we talked about chili and how people make chili, and it's amazing how many recipes there must be, because you know, just following a little bit on the Facebook stuff. Good gosh, there's people that think it's sacrilegious to make chili without beans. Yep. It's sacrilegious to make chili with beans, you know, and so it's really kind of interesting, some of the comments that I've seen.
It's a passionate subject with some people. I mean, it goes way beyond putting a little cheese and crackers on a bowl of chili meat and all that. Yeah, it is. I put a deal, and that's what you're talking about, I know. I put a little... I call it a teaser on Facebook here before this air, you know, before that aired, and I just mentioned that me and Mr. Whitetail here, we're probably qualify as sure enough Texans, because we've never lived anywhere else, you know, for any length of time, and we like beans in our chili, and our folks like beans in their chili, and our grandparents like beans in their chili.
Right.
And you know, and I knew what was going to happen. There's a bunch of, well, you know, chili doesn't have beans. Don't you know that chili does not have beans in it? Well, our chili has beans in it, and so how far back do you have to go in lineage, or you know, back into Texas history? And I like chili without beans very much. I love it, and you do too, because we've eaten it that way when we didn't have beans. But if I have some good, I like those red kidney beans, and a can of them in there, it just kind of adds a little flavor to me. It does. But that was so funny. Anyway, I know down in Terlingua back in about '69, something like that, give or take. Frank X. Tolbert, you know, he didn't. He won the contest. I understand. I've read about it, and I know you have. He won the contest without beans, and by golly, that became law. But there's all kind of facts people can bring up. I tell you, Larry, I'm going to give a recipe in just a minute, because we're going to talk about whitetail deer for sure. But you know, the fact that beans are in chili, is I was at a hunting camp here. It's been several years ago, and we'd killed a deer, and some old boy had a little meat, one of those little hand meat grinders, and he wanted to grind up some venison, and we didn't have real chili. I used the Wicks Fowler kit to make chili, but we just had some chili powder and onions and garlic stuff. And he wanted me to make it, and we did. In the cabinet at the camp, we had some beans. I swear, I put that in there. They didn't even see me, and you'd have thought, really, I mean, you'd have thought I'd. You said sacrilegious. It was almost that bad. Oh, Larry. But anyway, I guess I'm going to get us off of that. But one quick thing, and I made a pot of chili from this young, about a 60, 70 pound young sow that I shot. And it turned out good. But I smoked chili. That's the difference that makes it, to me, gives it an added flavor. Put some hickory wood on it, and then I froze that. I ate plenty, you know that. I had a good meal of chili, but I froze a bunch of it, and next time we get together with Jeff or wherever we're at a camp, I'm going to take some cornbread mix, put it in the bottom of a cast iron skillet, and then I'm going to layer it with some of that good smoked chili. And then I'm going to put another layer of cornbread mix on top of that and sprinkle some cheese on it and put some coals on the top of it and make us some, I don't know what you'd call it, but I've done that before. You're talking about some good camp.
Ooh, Lordy, you're not a kid now. I've had it that way, but you've done it before, and I've had it that way in a couple of other hunting camps.
Good stuff. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's delicious that way.
We're going to do that, and it's easy. I mean, just mix it up. It's the chili's already cooked. Well, I guess people are saying, well, what are these guys going to talk about hunting? Because hunting season is just a little over a week away. Actually, you're heading to up to Canada on a moose hunt, aren't you?
I am. I'm going to British Columbia with Love Brothers and Lee, and this is a hunt kind of in the central part of Canada, the north central part of British Columbia, and it's actually a calling hunt. We're flying into a sizable lake that they have a huge area, and so they just kind of rotate around. And from my understanding, they've not hunted this lake in the last 6 years because that's coming back around with that rotation. And so we're going to be out there trying to call in moose. And I've done this a little bit in the past, and I've had kind of mixed success. Mostly it's been young bulls, but where we've been calling pretty much in the past, that's kind of what was there. So really looking forward to this. I'm taking a 375 Ruger and a Mossberg Patriot, and then I'm taking the I'm trying to remember the grain. I think it's 250 grains. It used to be the GMX quantity, but now the CX and their outfitter. Here not too long ago, I was over at the Stealth Vision guys there in Crockett, Texas, and we put a 3-18 by 44 scope on it and shot that thing. And if I wanted to, I mean, it is lethal out to about 600 yards.
Yeah.
But, my goal is to try to get within 20 to 25 yards of that moose or let him come in that close before I take a shot at him. So, I'm really kind of anxious. I hunted moose in the past, hunted British Columbia, but ended up on the Prophet Musqueam area, which is in the far northern part of British Columbia for moose. And this is a little bit south of there. And I think it's going to be an absolute great hunt. Got Jeff Johnson coming in, just a friend of ours from Oklahoma. And he's going to be up there with me and a couple of guys from Mossberg, John McClellan, who I've known for a long time, and then one of their engineers as well too. So, going to be kind of a fun hunt. I'll have a moose tag. I understand the fishing is outstanding on this lake, so I've got a fishing license as well too. And if everything works out right, I'll probably, if I'm lucky, maybe I'll shoot a moose on like the second or third day, and I'll spend a bunch of time fishing while I'm up there too. And of course, we'll be filming all that for A Sportsman's Life as well too.
Oh man, that's going to be a hunt, Larry. I mean, to get fired. I know you're fired up about it. I would be for sure. I've never hunted moose, And to be honest with you, as much as I've kicked around, and I have a good bit up there in northern Saskatchewan, I've seen moose in the water when I was fishing. Never hunting in the fall, always in the summer. But I've got some. You probably remember those pictures of last year. We were in a boat, and that big old bull was out there. He was about in knee deep water, sticking his head under the water, eating the vegetation there. But we got within probably 60 yards of that bull, and just let the boat drift up to it with the wind, Right. And got some awesome pictures. But I've dealt with quite a few elk when we outfitted, Larry. Elk on the ground, after
yes,
you
sir.
put. But a bull, yeah, a lot of that.
You got me laughing because I've had to take apart several moose, and I've shot several in the past. And a couple of ones I was able to. First one we were able to drive up to in Maine, but all the rest of them I pretty much had a pack out on my back, and none of them were anywhere close to camp. So that can be a chore once you get that moose down.
Well, a moose, big bull moose. Is he more or less twice as big as an elk? I mean, probably.
Pretty much.
That's what I'm thinking. Well, I'll tell you one thing: an elk is like a horse when you get one down up in the black timber up there. I can only imagine. Well, will it be like a drop camp, or do you know?
I think there's an established camp there that we're staying at. I think there's some little cabins and that kind of stuff that they built on this lake. And again, what they do is to not over-harvest any particular area. It's a huge area, and a guy by the name of Ron Fleming, who he and his wife run those operations, and from visiting with Ron, it's like, okay, Larry, and I didn't realize I'd known Ron for years through DSC, and I spent many hours just visiting and didn't place a name until he and I got talking, and he was telling me, he said, we rotate, over certain areas, and that way we've always got some older mature bulls in an area, and he says what happens is this time of the year, those cows kind of accumulate down close to the lake, these lakes, and then these bulls come out of the mountains and out of the hills, start chasing because the rut's getting started. And he said they call, and he said you'll have an absolute blast. So really, really looking forward to that hunt. That's
going to be a special time. Well, I look forward to hearing the stories and seeing the footage on our TV show, The Sportsman's Life, and we will. I'd like to remind everybody, A Sportsman's Life. You can go to YouTube. It gets quite a few views there on YouTube. You can just search out A Sportsman's Life, but where it really gets watched is Carbon TV, and it's there. Jeff Rice, our buddy, who's a great does a great job with the videography, but he puts a new show up every week, and it may be Larry hunting a moose, or it may be us catching a catfish. So it's kind of whatever's going on, Larry, the one show that was just came out is I filmed a hog hunt with here close to home with a thermal scope, that the Rattler, the TS-19. And it's that affordable AGM Global Vision scope, cost about, I think, $800, which a lot of dollars, but it's not like $8,000, But It did a great job, that scope did, and it's on the video of the hunt, the kill, the whole bit.
Yes, sir.
On A Sportsman's Life. So, well, I guess it's we're going to be able to start hunting here in Texas a little over a week from now on the managed leases, and I do some bow hunting still. And I plan to get with Jeff and Jeff Rice up there in East Texas, and we'll kind of open up the bow season there and see if we can get some meat for some chili,
You're right, because we're going to have to do some cooking when you and I go to the Choctaw here for too very long. That will be a perfect opportunity to actually that cornbread dish you're talking about. You got me thinking along those lines. That sounds pretty darn interesting.
And we're going to do it. Well, Larry, we're out of time. I wish we had about 4 or 5 more hours to talk, but we don't.
Too.
Well, you be safe in your travels and keep me posted. I want to know what's going on. And if you can, text me a picture or two, from up there in the wilds in Canada.
You got a deal.
Folks, this segment is made possible by Ultrimatic Feeders. Go online to ultrimaticfeeders.com and check out the most awesome line of game feeders in the world. I've been using these things for 15 years, and I've got one that's been in the woods about 10 or 11 years. I forget exactly how long. Check them out, ultrimaticfeeders.com. Folks, I want to tell you about an awesome destination down at Lake Tawakoni. It's Wind Point Park. If you love the outdoors, if you like camping in an area, I bet I saw 60 deer. I was in there recently touring the place, went fishing down there. It's some awesome fishing, camping, long-term RV rentals overnight. There's some beautiful cabins, some bigger cabins and littler ones right there by fishing. You can walk out the door and fish at some of those places. But the place is neat as a pin. It's been around for 10 years. Wind Point Park, if you haven't been down there in the last 10 years, it's all remodeled and just beautiful. So check it out online. I think the website is windpointparktx.com. Of course, you can just Google Wind Point Park, Tawakoni, and pull it up. But I want you to know about it. You're going to be hearing old Luke talk about the fishing down there a lot. I've already done some bank fishing there, so you can catch a lot of blues, and you can also catch a ton of channel catfish along those rocks. Another thing I want to tell you about, VINEYARDMAX. The website is vineyardmax.net. They make an awesome line of game feeders, fish feeders. They're just an awesome product, but they also have a deer attractant. That's what I really want to tell you about. It's called VINEYARDMAX. It's made from dried hammer milled grape hulls and wheat bran, I think it is, or ground up wheat, and also some corn chops. So it's got stuff in it deer like, plus it's got that scent of grapes that we've used it. Larry and I've used it out in West Texas where a deer have never seen a grape and had them come in on it. So check that out, and it's the website again is vineyardmax.net. Folks, this segment is made possible by Smokin Tex electric smokers that I've been using a long, long time, CatfishPro, catfishing baits and catfish supplies, Ultrimatic Feeders, and AGM Global Vision, maker of the spotters and thermal scopes that I hunt with. Well, folks, it is getting to be the time of year, just around the corner. October is when the trophy blue catfish season traditionally kicks in at Lake Tawakoni and other lakes in the southwest, but Tawakoni is in my opinion, the primo place. Tony Pennebaker, good friend of mine, guide Tony Pennebaker, been guiding for catfish a long time. Let's get old Tony on and pick his brain and see what's coming up. Tony, thank you, buddy, for being with us.
Good morning, Luke. Yep, thank you for calling me up.
Yeah, man. Oh, well, we've had a ton of fun together, and good Lord willing, we're going to have a ton of fun more in the upcoming weeks and months, catching some fish. Yep. So it is a transition time. Now, I know that channel catfishing is strong at Lake Tawakoni. Go catch. It's no big deal to catch a limit through the summer months. But as these nights start getting cooler, as they have already started doing, in October right here coming, it's time that probably a lot of people are calling you, talking about the trophy blues, right?
Oh yeah, I'm getting some calls for trophies, and people wanting to catch one of those monsters.
Yes,
and it's time to start working on them.
Yeah. One thing that I know that as a I get to fish with guys like you and David Hansen and people that know a whole lot about. You make a living out of catching catfish, so. If you want to learn something, go to somebody that does it. So I've learned this. The deep humps in the cold weather, cooler weather, cold weather, the deeper water does produce a lot of big ones. But I've also learned this. A lot of what we're going to call trophy catfish come from shallower water, even in October and November. Would you agree with that?
Do.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, even in hotter weather. I mean, it's really no time you can't catch them unless you stay at home.
That's right.
If you stay at home, you will not catch one.
Now that's see, I like the way you think about fishing because, fishing, hunting, the stuff to do, dove hunting. Tony's a major dove hunter. He loves to hunt dove. Any of that, deer hunting, hog hunting, which I'm a devout hog hunter too. If you go in there and you go out on a fishing trip or a hog hunt or a deer hunt or whatever, with the mindset that if you don't shoot a great big buck or get the perfect hog you're looking for or catch a 60-pound catfish, it's not a fun trip. Now, I'm not saying you don't want to have, you want success, but every trip, I don't care who you are, is not going to result in a monster catfish. Now, but at Tawakoni, it's very, very common to catch a big one, isn't it?
It's very likely. I mean, it's likely you're going to catch something pretty good if you're out here trying.
Yeah. And
using the right baits and the right techniques, fishing in the right spot.
Yes.
And you're going to encounter some.
And you learn that by doing it.
Up, you might get broke off up there in them trees or something, but you might get to fight him. I always say it's better to fight and lose than it is not to fight.
Sound like something you'd read in a Shakespeare. Better to fight the fish and lose than not to fight at all. So, yeah.
You still had the fun,
You're right.
Heck, you ain't going to keep that big thing anyway.
Nope.
As long as you get him up there close enough to see him, that's just about as good as taking a picture with him. Not quite, but almost.
That's right, Tony. Okay, so let's think about this. Let's break it down into two patterns. Say you're going to be fishing the deeper water. Now, tell us, and I know I already fished with you so much, you're going to be using probably fresh shad in the wintertime.
Yeah, it'll be cut big gizzard shad or perch. I don't mind using a big perch.
Yeah.
Sometimes I use drum. If I catch them, they're a little harder to catch, but sometimes I use drum. Have a lot of success with that. But we're going to drag the baits. I like to troll, and everything, weather and wind and all's right. I like to troll along close to the woods and the creek beds, river beds, out in the open water. Find those fish, you find some bait, and troll through there with your trolling motor. Kind of drifting. If it's too windy, use the wind sock, slow you down some. We fish Santee rigs, 2 to 3 foot rigs.
And Tony, describe that, the setup on the Santee. Most people probably know, but tell them, and the hook size and all that,
Well, there's a whole variation of weights you can use. Some of them like clip those slinky weights on. Some of them got their stump jumper weights and whatever kind of weight. I use about 1.5 ounces or 2 ounces, depending on how rough it is. But about a 36-inch leader with a good sized bobber. Inline bobbers there, the we call them. Most people use those split ones. I use Demon Dragons a lot just because they're a very tough float, And if you hang them up in something, won't rip them off your line. But I use them sometimes with another type bobber too in front of them. Up to 7 to 10 aught hooks, just depending on what size bait I got. Circle hooks. Doesn't really matter. Good sharp circle hook. Don't really matter what brand you can buy. You can buy 1,000 different ones.
And as long as they're sharp and strong. So that
one you fish with that catches a fish, that'd be the best one.
That's it. Now, Tony, the Santee rig for our friends is basically the reason Tony uses that is the 1.5 ounce weight or whatever. It's above a swivel, so it'll get it down. But it's not going to be dragging on. The weight will be on the bottom, but the bait will be floated up with that floater that I call them a cork, a bobber. Yeah. It's really an inline styrofoam little, about the size of your little finger, isn't it, Tony? Something like that.
Yeah, and there's 100 different ways to set it up,
Yeah.
You can look them up online, get a picture, get an idea, and
go get
start experimenting.
Make you some. So And then you're just going to slowly float along out there. Probably the rods are going to be in the rod holders, right?
Yeah, rods and rod holders. I fish like 5 in the back, and some people use more.
Yep.
5 is, I don't think, when you come across fish, you're going to catch them with 5.
Yeah.
As easy as you will with 7 or 8 out there.
They're going to find
whatever makes you feel confident. That's what you ought to do.
That's right. Yep. They'll smell that. If you got 5 baits in the water, I fished with you and by other people, by myself. I've had them fish. It's kind of weird because I've float, drifting like you're talking about. Drift along, you'll see it's almost like a big old fish has hit it with his tail. You just see a little twitch. It's not a channel cat with that big bite, but they'll trail that along for a ways, and you'll have a little indication sometime that there's one there. But then he'll sock it down, won't he? When he really grabs it.
I always figure if you're getting bites, you're getting them little bites, you're in the fish.
Yes. Yep.
Well, sometimes you go along, you just ain't seeing nothing, and just out of nowhere,
the rod
will take one of them down, the drag will go flying off of it,
Yeah.
And you'll have a trophy on. But most time you're in some fish and you're seeing little old pecks. We don't pay no attention to them, if they're too small. The planer board covers it up. You'll never even know they're doing it.
Right.
And you'll pull your baits in a lot of time, and they done pick the eyeballs out of them. And
yeah.
picked all over them, while you've been dragging them. But that don't stop them big fish from eating that. They'll eat it. If they come across it, they're hungry, they'll eat it.
They'll nail it. Okay, so that's pretty standard and deep water bite. So now, if you want to fish shallow, you already said, you'll be around probably a creek channel or some wooded areas or whatever, and then you're going to be fishing water as shallow as what?
2 or 3 foot a lot of times, 3 foot. And I mean, I pull up on these windy points are good a lot of time, this time of year. But you can go on down the bottom, get around them trees, get in the river channel itself or close to it, and just fish with smaller hooks. We'll go down to 5/0 hooks doing that.
Yep.
But still, I mean, good 5/0 hook land any 60, 70 pounder it's out there.
It will. And also catch a 6-pounder, 2-pounder too, won't it?
Oh, yeah, catch them all.
Catch them all.
We just don't use as big of baits than, if fishing, because mostly we're fishing for fish when we're up in there. We're going to fish for the 2-pounders to whatever picks that bait up.
That's right. Yep.
And we may put some fairly decent sized baits on there for too, Just to have one out there that the smallest fish out there won't take off with.
Yeah, exactly.
Somehow the big ones, they tend to find those baits that they prefer.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Well, Tony, all this is great information. The real news is we're right at the beginning of what most people consider the trophy blue catfish season. So it's all ahead, and it doesn't stop. I mean, through March, I've been out there with you guys and, catch them in March and the big ones. I've also caught big ones in the summer too, but it's prime time in the cooler weather. Tony, I
love this time of year.
Oh,
I mean, this fishing in general, I mean, this is a great time fishing.
The best time, really.
You can catch trophies, you can catch eaters. It's on, what I call it.
That's right. It is.
You just catch fish. It gets good, you catch fish.
That's true, buddy. Well, leave your phone. I want people to be able to contact Tony Pennebaker out there at Tawakoni. So how do they reach you and book a trip or learn some stuff?
Best thing to do is give me a call, 903-474-3078. You can look me up on Facebook. Website's Lake Tawakoni, CatfishGuide.com. Under code guide service on Facebook.
Easy.
You just, Google my name, Tony Pennebaker, and you'll read all about my punch bait.
That's right, Tony P's
Get my fishing bait and everything.
By the way, a place I've discovered I'm going to learn more about fishing there is Wind Point Park. That is an awesome spot. They've got your Tony P's. It's available all over down in there and another place online. But I'm wanting to fish off the bank on that long point, and I'm going to get some tips from you. I've got the rigs to do it with, but it's getting time for that too, isn't it, really?
Oh yeah, catch fish out there right now off of the. I mean, off Wind Point's long pier, they got out there. It'd be a good place.
Yep.
You know, them fish gonna come in. They're gonna come in shallow down on that end.
Yeah.
All that wind blowing towards it.
Yeah.
It's gonna be fish down there.
I'm
down there all the time, but I love Wind Point Park. We used to take our kids there years ago.
I know.
But since it's got new management now, and the place is
really nice now.
Real nice. Everything down there is state of the art.
It is.
Nice.
It's clean, and a lot of deer to photograph and fool with when you're down there. Well, Tony, they're telling me we're out of time, buddy. We could spend about 5 hours talking, but thanks for all the input and the information, and hope to see you soon and maybe catch fish with you,
All right, Luke.
Folks, let's talk a little outdoor cooking. Let me tell you about an electric smoker that I've been using for 15 years, I guess. Smokin Tex electric smokers. If you're tired of staying up all night keeping that wood fire burning when you're barbecuing, give Smokin Tex a try. They're made to last a lifetime. You can check them out at SmokinTex.com. That's SMOKINTEX.com. Well, friends, Mr. Larry Weishuhn is going to tell you about the finest hunting optics that we have ever found.
Look, these are called Stealth Vision. They come from Crockett, Texas. Dr. John McCall developed them. They're 34-millimeter tubes as opposed to the narrower tubes, so more light transmission. They have a little green light that comes on. That scope is level because that's when you want to pull the trigger. They have an optional lighted reticle as well, too, and a whole lot of other products, and folks can learn more about them by going to stealthvision.com.
And for seasonings, anything to do with outdoor cooking, all kind of jerky seasonings, sausage seasonings, Butcher Packer Supply. That's butcherpackersupply.com. I think the website is butcher-packer.com. Folks, how about that little intro from Ernest Tubb there? This segment here is brought to us by the Choctaw Hunting Lodge up in southeast Oklahoma, owned by the Choctaw Nation. Pyramyd Air, your one-stop shop for everything airgun related. Well, friends, let's visit with a good friend of mine, Stephen Wall. Now, the name of what we named this show years ago was Catfish Radio with Luke Clayton and friends. Well, here's a good friend of mine, Stephen. You're going to learn some stuff about hogs, wild hogs, and you're going to learn something about video cameras in the woods, I promise you. Stephen, thanks for being with us, man.
Thank you, Luke. Thanks for having me.
Love to have you on, and you kind of a modest dude, but you're a storehouse of knowledge is what you are. A lot of things. Let's talk hogs. Now, folks, Stephen is the wild hog buyer for Kaufman County. Kaufman County wild hog buyer. He purchases lots and lots of hogs from trappers throughout the year. A big truck comes by ever so often, takes the hogs to market, to a facility. They're inspected and they're butchered, and they wind up on the plate of some fancy restaurant somewhere. So that's one thing that Stephen does. Another thing, he has a surveillance camera business. He's an expert in cameras, which led him to start he offers economically priced video cameras and the service to run them. That's another thing that Stephen is expert at and that he does. But, Stephen, let's start with hogs, buddy. Are they,
yes, sir.
Fall is coming up. You're watching those persimmon trees, if I know you.
Yes, sir. We've been picking them both for about a week and a half now.
Yeah, you don't have to have them. There's a question. What we're talking about, friends, there's no better bait for wild hogs than persimmons. Stephen taught me that a couple of years ago. But you don't necessarily, they're not ripe right now. They're getting there, but you don't have to wait until they're soft and mushy, right?
Right. Yeah, we pick ours right off the tree sometimes. When they're still green, they'll ripen off the tree.
Okay.
So we do that because we've got the trees. The hogs pick them up if we let them hit the ground.
Oh, yeah. The hogs, everything eats persimmons, including old Luke. I love them myself, But they don't, they're a short, quote, shelf life, if you will. Usually the first frost, around that time, they'll start dropping. And they're soft and mushy, but they won't stay on the ground overnight once the hogs find them. And not only hogs, but coons and deer and possums, everything eats persimmon. But that's one of the best baits that you found, right?
Yes, sir. It sure is. We freeze ours. We freeze them, and then when we want to put them in the trap, we just dump them out. Let them thaw out there. That smell is what gets them.
They can't handle it. They come in. You devote freezers to these these persimmons. I mean, you fill them up, don't you?
Oh, yes, sir. We got a couple of chest freezers that we pretty much keep full. Mm-hmm. Well, we're emptying now, but it's about to be refilled.
It's restocking time. And folks, Stephen is also an expert trapper. He and his partner Mark, they have big contracts with places, and we hunters can't. There's no way we can control the numbers of hogs. No way. But we can. Right. I do like to put about 10 or 15 a year in the freezer because I like to eat them and cook them.
Right.
So how's the trapping been going into fall? Kaufman County is east of Dallas, friends, about an hour. But overall, hog populations are they're not under control, are they?
No. I think all we're doing, we're getting better at catching more hogs, and with the round traps and the cameras and triggering the gate remotely, and we're catching more. But I still think all we're doing is just culling them.
That's true. I think
there's just so many of them that it's just hard to keep up.
I know. I live in Kaufman County, not far from where Stephen is, and I live between the Trinity River and the East Fork of the Trinity, and a 15,000 acre cattle ranch on one side, and a couple of 1,000-acre wetlands on the other. And I'm close to a strip of woods that connects all this. And I tell you, Stephen, during the heat of the summer, they weren't moving much. The hogs, they were staying down near the water, digging up cattail roots and stuff like that. But they are on the prowl. They're on the move. I shot one last week, one out of about 25. Didn't knock it down in them, but I picked out a gilt, a young sow, weighed about 80 pounds. And my goal was to make a big pot of smoked chili, and I did that and froze up some. You and Mark need to come by sometime when I know you're around at noon, and we'll have
that sounds good.
We'll have that, yes, or we'll have some fun out here at this little old cabin I got behind the house. So right now, going into winter, is that going to be a good time for you taking in hogs? I mean, people.
Oh yeah, it's usually our busiest time of year. It starts picking up right about now, and we've picked up like usual. So I can't see anything that would keep us from having another good year like we did last year.
Yep. Well, so the price of hog, just to give people, and folks are listening after all of our great radio stations run this, it's a podcast and people listen to it everywhere. But the price of now, roughly, you don't have to quote it to the penny, but, about what do they pay?
Over 100 pounds is 40 cents. Well, 100 to 200 is 40 cents. Then over 200 is 50 cents a pound.
Yeah, right. Now, and then under that, say under.
And then under from 75 to 100, you're looking at around 25 to 30 cents a pound.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then 60 to 75, you're looking at 15 to 20 cents a pound.
Right. And all those are butcherable hogs that can,
yes,
the processors or and how often roughly does the big truck, I call it, come, and just depending on?
Every 7 days.
Every 7 days. So you're,
yes, sir.
Folks, Stephen has a licensed facility to hold hogs. You have to be licensed to do that, but about every 7 days they come in and pick the hogs up and take them to a processing plant. Do you know where that is in Texas, roughly? Would you have
I believe it's Divine.
Yeah.
Close to San Antonio. It's called Texas Natural Meats.
Texas Natural Meats. Then they market all over the butchered processed meat, yes, right? Goes all over.
They most of their stuff is shipped to Europe. Most of their meat shipped to Europe. like 75-80% of it is.
And then there are I have some places here in Texas I know serves wild boar.
Yeah.
There's a misconception, Stephen, on wild hogs that most people that read what I write and listen to me on whatever the radio, but they know that I've got a passion for hogs. I love to hunt them, but they'll ask me, "Are those wild hogs good to eat?" And the only way I know to answer that, and I've told you this many times, I'll say, "Well, look, if you were going to the sales barn to a livestock auction, what hog would you buy?" And that usually answers their question, So, I'm not saying you can't take the back straps. You can off of a 200-pound boar, and I know how to turn it into some pretty good meat. But as a rule, wild hogs are just tougher. They have to be because they're out making a living with their muscles. They're running and rooting, and where a pinned hog, all he's got to do is find the trough,
That's right.
Well, so I bet we've maybe informed some people about how wild hogs are put to use. Now, nobody loves to hunt them more than I. Nobody. I think that's true. I hunt them year-round, often, a couple times a month. But the truth is, even with an AR, stacking them up, you see trailer loads of hogs that people have shot with an AR and thermal scope. Nothing wrong. That's eradication. That's really not hunting, in my opinion.
Right.
But that's not going to get it done. I know I'm right on this. The most effective way to control hogs is trapping, hands down.
That's right.
And tell people why that's so why it's the best way. Steve?
Well, it's really the best way because when you're shooting, usually you don't get them all, and with the trap. Especially what we have now with the cameras and triggering the gate, remotely, you can wait on them all to go in, before you shut the gate. That way you're catching the whole sounder, and you can explain what the sounder is. But you're catching the whole sounder at one time. That's really the goal.
For instance, we had my neighbors call it a hog problem. I don't. I kind of like having them in my yard. We live on about 4 acres, folks. But real close to me, I have access to some good honey. Anyway, so my neighbors were, "Look, can you shoot these hogs? And we got to get rid of them." I said, "Well, I know a man that can take care of them." And it got Stephen out and Mark. They set up their round trap with their cell phone activated door on it and all that. And in about a week, bingo, the whole sounder was gone. You and I became the hero of my neighborhood after that, Stephen. They said, "Oh, that man, he knows." I said, "Yeah, he knows what he does, Anyway, let's shift gears. We've got time. Okay. Trail cameras. I'll go way back to the 35 millimeter trail camera that sent to me years ago that didn't work real well. But you sell, and we're going to tell people how to locate you and how to get these things. Video cameras, if you will. What's the proper term?
Well, it's a trail camera.
Yeah.
But it's also, we call it in the security side of it, we call it a PTZ, pan, tilt, zoom camera. This camera will rotate almost 360 degrees, and zoom in and tilt up and down. It's also got solar panel, battery. All of that's included in the price of this camera, and it's camouflage. And it connects through a SIM card, just like your cell phone does. And this SIM card, I believe we are the only company that has the universal SIM card that will use any carrier, not just AT&T and T-Mobile, because they're kind of they're partners anyway. But it also a Verizon tower, a U.S. Cellular tower. These SIM cards will work off any tower, so the connection is usually not a problem. We can even outfit this camera with a long range antenna if we need to. But that's where a lot of people have their trouble. They'll go buy one of those, cellular trail cameras and put it out, and they're putting it down on the bottom of a tree. Well, if you don't have the right SIM card or the right signal, a lot of times you don't get anything. It skips the pictures. But this camera that we sell, you won't have that problem.
And the reason that I know, I've used one down at our friend Jeff Rice's place for over a year now, and that thing never missed a beat. You don't have to worry. He's got the solar panel. Now, here's the kicker. For about $150, give or take, am I right? You can get this. Yeah. You can get the camera, and then, it's going to cost you cell service, but that's about less than
$24 a month, I believe. Yeah,
and Stephen, what we'll I don't mind turning this into a commercial at all because a lot of our friends are listening. But my theory is, why buy a trail camera? For a good one's going to cost you that much or close to it, maybe more. Right. When you can put this thing in the woods and download an app and see what's going on in your neck of the woods anytime. So
live, and that's another thing. Mm-hmm. That's the most important thing, really, is that it's a live feed. Mm-hmm. Anytime you want to see it, you just pull it up, pull the app out.
Turn it
there
on.
You go.
Yeah.
You're looking live.
That's right. When we get through,
and Luke, how many batteries did you have to replace in your camera out there?
Zero. No.
Exactly.
No.
Over a year.
No, it's still running. Yeah. Over a year. Yeah. So how do people? So $150 and then about $25 a month. It's going to cost you that or more wherever. How do they find you and learn more?
Best way, you can reach me on Facebook. Just look up Kaufman County Wild Hog Buyer, and you can send me a message there, or you can call me at 214-809-5303.
Okay. Well, Stephen, I'll tell folks, as I say all the time, if anybody that's ever on my show, and a lot of people do, email me at catfishradio.org. You can remember that too, catfishradio.org. My email is there. Send me an email. I'll get you hooked up with Stephen. Stephen, I'm going to let you go load those hogs out. I know you're looking at a bunch of them right now.
I'm sitting here looking at them right now, running around the trap.
Folks, this is Luke. For about the past decade, I've been hunting editor for Air Gun Hobbyist magazine. I think the only magazine devoted strictly to air gun shooting and hunting in the country. Well, in that length of time, I've learned quite a bit about big bore air guns and smaller calibers too. A spot to go to that if you're interested in air guns, you need to know about Pyramyd Air. The website is PYRAMYD, PyramydAir.com. They have anything and everything you need, from the guns themselves, the big bores or the smaller calibers, to the accessories. Just remember PyramydAir.com, and there's a number when you get on the website if you need to call and talk to somebody. Give them a buzz, and they can fill you in on little details that you might need to know about shooting or hunting with big bore air guns. While you're on the website there, I'd like you to check out the big bore air gun that I've done a great deal of hunting with. It's the Seneca Dragon Claw, 50 caliber, pressures up to 3,000 psi, and it looks like a conventional rifle. Wooden stock. I think you'll like the appearance, and I know you'll like the performance. It shoots not only bullets, but also air bolts as well, tipped with a broadhead. Check it out. It's the Seneca Dragon Claw.
The snowflakes fall as winter comes, and time just seems to fly.
Friends, this segment is brought to us by CVA Muzzleloaders. In my opinion, the very best muzzleloaders in the world, the ones that I shoot. You can check them out online, CVA.com. AGM Global Vision, maker of the Rattler and the Adder that I use. You can check them out online too, agmglobalvision.com. Kuby's Wild Game Processing and Kuby's Restaurant in Dallas. And VINEYARDMAX, maker of some awesome deer attractant and some very fine game feeders and fish feeders, located down in Nacogdoches, Texas. Check them out at vineyardmax.net. Well, friends, guess who's back in the studio with us? It is Mr. Larry Weishuhn. We visited with Larry earlier in Campfire Talk, but deer season, bow season, and then hunting with firearms on some of the managed ranches, many of the managed ranches in Texas, is a little over a week or so away. I've got some more deer questions for Larry. Larry, thank you for coming back today, buddy, for this week.
Always a pleasure, Luke, and you're right. We're right on the cusp of some unbelievably great hunting this year.
We are. So let me just quiz you some. Now, and we can say mostly bow hunters, but in Texas, a whole lot of rifle, muzzleloader, air gun hunters are going to be in the woods too on these Texas Parks and Wildlife managed ranches that permitted so many bucks and so many does. So how about rubs? Now, I get out in the woods about every 3 or 4 times a week here by the house. You know, some of the rubs I'm seeing are already dried. You know, I mean, we know what a fresh rub is, but I'm seeing some that are already, you know, drying on it. So how important would rubs be this time of year, you know?
Luke, number one, it tells you that there are bucks in that immediate area and there have been there, and they're probably going to still be there for a while before the rut starts. So to me, what happens is the testosterone level goes up to a certain level, and that constricts the blood vessels. That causes the velvet to start cracking and dying, all that kind of thing starts coming off. And those bucks, to help it come off, what they'll do is first bush they come to, they'll rub on. And generally what they do is once the velvet starts coming off, you very seldom see velvet where they've been rubbing, because they have a tendency to eat it right after it comes up off as well too, kind of a conservation of energy kind of thing. So right now there's going to be a lot of those kind of rubs that you can find where it looked like a buck he was just there for a little while, and he may not ever come back to that particular rub. But it tells me for sure that there are bucks in that immediate area to begin with. And then what I started looking for as for rubs is I try to find those rubs, and I try to do this really a little bit earlier even, that show signs of where those bucks have rubbed in the past, you know, where that tree or that sapling or whatever's tried to kind of heal over, and you find where they've been rubbed on again. Those generally are the rubs that those bucks return to every year. So they're really two kind of rubs. There's an active rub or an inactive rub, kind of when you get right down to it. But I'm looking for rubs of all kinds that tells me they're bucks in the area, and then I'm looking for those rubs where they've rubbed in the past, because the chances are that's where those deer are going to come back to and continue rubbing as we get farther into the hunting season.
You know, Larry, in parts of Texas where I've hunted most of my life, I can almost pick out a tree. Say you're in some hardwoods and there's one lone juniper, one lone cedar tree. You can almost always go to that and find where bucks either freshly rubbed or rubbed it last year. So it's kind of fun picking out trees that these probably are not these bigger trees with the bark on them and all that. That's probably going to be later in the year also that they rub, you know.
Yeah, and what happens sometimes too is there'll be like a communal rub to where any bucket run comes by, kind of like a male dog marking territory on a tire kind of thing. You know, every dog that comes by, once one does, it kind of does the same thing. Scrapes kind of have a tendency sometimes to work that same way, but to me, I like to find, as you just mentioned, those kind of rubs like that, to where they've been rubbed on for long periods of time over several years. A lot of times the same buck will come to it again, and once he starts rubbing that particular area, and then you got new bucks that come in through as well too. Now the other thing is we get a little bit closer, kind of into getting a little bit closer into the rut. One of the things I look for is I look for rubs, and what you can tell by looking at rubs, several different things. Number one is if you can tell almost which way that deer walks when he goes to that area, because they'll be rubbed on this side of the tree, you know, maybe say he's walking to the north on a regular basis. Most of the rubs will be rubbed on the south side of the tree. And so you can tell kind of what that kind of path that buck takes, kind of thing. The other thing is if the tree has been rubbed on a fair amount, is if it's been individual buck, you can really kind of tell something about his antlers as well too, simply by looking at the surface of that rub. If it's deeply gouged and all that kind of thing, the chances are he's got a bunch of little kit points down around the base, and where he's rubbing primarily between the brow tine and that lower part of his antler that's gouging in there. Now, if it's a real smooth area, he's probably got really smooth antlers, you know, as far as the surface is concerned. Now, if you're really lucky, where he's rubbing right behind it, a little way are some more limbs. And you can, if you kind of see where the buck's been rubbing, say on that south side of the tree, there's bushes kind of a little on the north side. You can actually get an idea as to how long his tines are, but how far he reaches past that primary rub area. And to some extent, even get an idea as to what kind of spread that buck might have. Just basically looking at not only where he's been rubbing directly on the tree, but that area right behind where those antler tips are touching the other branches. So a lot of things can be learned from rubs.
They can, and it's, I think a rub is maybe one of the more confusing things for deer hunters. I know early on, back before I got to be friends with you and learned a lot about deer from you and other folks too. I had no idea, but I call the rubs that I'm seeing right now. I nicknamed them velvet rubs. I don't know if that's what I call them. But
and that's good description.
So that's what they were for when that velvet was coming off. They were hitting those bushes, and here it is, late September, and those things are already dried. But on our next campfire talk next week, Larry, I'd like us to, when we have more time, I'd like to get into scrapes, and the licking branch above the scrapes, and there's a lot to be learned from rubs, some subtle things that you brought out just now, but there's so much to learn about scrapes. I know as a boy I saw some scrapes, had no earthly idea what it was. I thought a squirrel had been scratching on the ground. I didn't know. Well, Larry, thanks a lot for coming back in this week's show, and I thought it would help some folks out about just you talking about the rubs, and I'm sure it will. Looking forward to getting with you next week, and we'll concentrate more on scrapes, and who knows what all we'll talk about. We're going to have a good time anyway, right?
Yes, we will. And wish everybody out there the very best of coming hunting season. Remember, if you hadn't already got your hunting license, you better go get it.
Folks, that about wraps our show up for this week. I've enjoyed being with you, and I hope you've had a good time too. This segment was made possible by AGM Global Vision, maker of the Rattler and the Adder, two awesome thermal scopes that I use for all my night hunting. Check out AGM, all the products that they have there online, agmglobalvision.com. And, folks, we're also brought to you by the Choctaw Hunting Lodge up in southeast Oklahoma, located about, 45 minutes west of Hugo, Oklahoma, owned by the Choctaw Nation. It's about 45,000 acres of awesome mountain, country, hills, valleys, loaded with game. Lots of eastern turkey, and they do eastern turkey hunts if you're looking for a spot to hunt turkey in the spring. Also, I want to remind you about the Seneca 50 caliber Dragon Claw that shoots bullets and pellets. And by pellets, I'm talking about 200 and 210 grain lead, chunks of lead. It's a big bore air gun that I use. Check out the Seneca Dragon Claw there at PyramydAir.com.